In this video, I want to talk about upgrading your copy of FM Starting Point to potentially the very latest copy of FM Starting Point. So what do I mean by upgrading from one FileMaker 12 file to another FileMaker 12 file? Are we talking about the idea of taking a FileMaker 11 file and upgrading it to FileMaker 14? No, because you're taking the same FileMaker file and you're just upgrading it to a new version of FileMaker. I'm talking about for people who actually have older copies of FM Starting Point and they see that we've created a brand new, really hot, awesome, amazingly cool copy of FM Starting Point that has some features they want to use. And they'd like to just press a button and start using the latest new version of FM Starting Point. Now, upgrading from one copy of a database to another copy of a database is frankly not one of the strongest suits of the FileMaker platform. It's just not. And FileMaker knows this. Of all the vast benefits that FileMaker has, rolling code forward and making seamless, easy upgrades is not something that the FileMaker platform is really known for. In fact, you're going to see that in this video. But it can be done, and so I want to talk to you about that a little bit here. So let's talk about upgrading your copy of FM Starting Point to the newest version. Now, the first thing I'm going to ask you, and the first thing you need to decide, is should you even bother upgrading a copy of FM Starting Point? As you can see here on the screen, this is the sample database that we've been playing with. This sample database was cut from FM Starting Point 3.0. And as you can see, it's got all sorts of optional reporting on screen here, all sorts of additional scripting. We were using this to demonstrate the Perform Script on Server demo that we set up in another video. It's got all sorts of customizations in here, all sorts of extra field setups, whatnot. This would be a lot of effort to reproduce this in a new copy of FM Starting Point, because there's no button in FileMaker that says, find all the changes I've made in the last 30 days and just take those and put them in a new database. The product doesn't have that capability, which is really too bad. You'd actually have to go and copy and paste layouts, if you could find the layout, and copy and paste fields, and then reconnect everything, which would be a real hassle. Just live with the database you have, but upgrade to the latest version of FileMaker and take advantage of the new features within the product. And feel free to maybe copy and paste some of the new features out of the latest copies of FM Starting Point back into your own customized FileMaker database. Frequently copying and pasting some of the new features out of the latest version of Starting Point back into your own customized copy of Starting Point is frequently much faster and much easier to do. In this case, this sample database is working for us. It's highly customized, but it's working fine for us, so we're just going to leave it alone. Now let's set up another example. Say that you downloaded a copy of FM Starting Point 3 and you hadn't made too many changes to it. Maybe you added a couple fields. And in retrospect, you figured out that those fields weren't even important to you. So I've popped open my old copy of FM Starting Point. It's a copy of FM Starting Point 3. And we look in here and we have some data in here. And it doesn't really matter how much data is in here, but there's some data in here. And we decide that, well, we're using a database, but we didn't add a lot of custom layout adjustments to it. So we pretty much used it kind of in its stock configuration. Well, then given that, we could pretty much import all the data out of the old copy of FM Starting Point into a new fresh copy. And that's doable, but it is going to take a little bit of effort. And that's what I want to show you in this video. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and close this old copy of FM Starting Point, and I'm going to put it in a folder with the latest copy of FM Starting Point. Whatever version the latest copy is, it doesn't matter. Put it in here with your old copy of FM Starting Point. Make sure your old copy has the name old. Then also go in here and make sure that you highlight the old name and copy it in the memory so we have the exact name copied in the memory, because we're going to need this. Then go ahead and open up your new copy of FM Starting Point, whatever this is. And we actually need to input this name in 3 different places, just the way this is. Kind of a hassle once again, but just bear with me here. We're going to go to Manage, External Data Sources. We're going to go to this one setting right here. We're going to say Edit, and it says Old FM Starting Point. We're going to come down here where it says File right there. Okay, we're just going to leave File. We're going to come right over here. We're going to delete that entry right there, whatever it was. and we're going to paste in that name that we had for the old file. Now what's not important is the name, but what is important is that we gave it a name and we don't change it, so that we kind of had this name over here. We're locking that name in. We're not going to change it now that we get this process going. So that's really important. Okay? So we say, okay, that's good. We say, okay, that's great. Now, the other thing to understand is that the script that does the importing is this one script right here. It's script 0016. Odds are, in your copy of FM Starting Point, it's probably 0016. Import records and reset serials from old FM Starting Point. So you double click this, and this is a long script. And what's important here at the top of this script is that you're going to need to take that name of that old file and adjust it into these two lines right here. So I'm going to go specify right here. I'm going to come down to this right here, this value in the middle here, and I'm going to leave where it says file once again. I'm going to leave that right there. I'm going to delete it. I'm going to paste in that new name of the old file one more time. It can be totally different than what I see here. Your copy might be, dirty dog jumped over the golden moon .fmp12. It doesn't matter. I say okay. Now this one right here is slightly different. I'm going to specify. I'm going to select right here. So notice that this doesn't have the file and colon in front of it. So I'm going to put the name. I'm going to delete it. I'm going to put it right here. Notice it's still in quotes. Very important. I'll explain this. What we're going to do here is that we're going to repeat basically this block of code over and over and over again for each table. So here we're importing into accounts, here we're importing into contacts. You can imagine that we're going to repeat this over and over and over again. And let me just walk you through this once so you understand what's going on. Right now we're in the new database, so we want to import or suck the information out of the old database into the new one, okay? Now, one of the main tenets of running an import command, whether I've mentioned this before or not, is that you want to import data from another FileMaker file. You want to make sure that other FileMaker file is closed. That will ensure that any data that you import out of it will come from the entire table. Say, for example, that you had a FileMaker file and you had a found set say of 100 records out of say 5,000. If you actually have that source file and it's open and it has a found set, FileMaker will actually only allow you to import out of that found set if the file is open. Now, if it had a found set and you closed it and you reopen it, that found set could still be there. But if the file is closed, FileMaker will ignore that found set and will allow you to get all the records, all say 5,000 records. So it's really important that we have the file in a closed state during the import. So that's why you'll notice in here frequently that we make sure that the old FileMaker file is closed during the import. Then, right after we complete the import, we actually open the file. And why is that? This next line requires that the file is open when we run it. It's kind of goofy. It's just the way this product works. And that is this command that says get next serial value. Now, if you've gone through the videos, you know that each record has to have a unique ID number. Well, if you just do an import and you import 100 records, and then you create a new record in the database, well, odds are your new record could be record number 1, but you've already imported record number 1. And then you create another new record and you have record number 2, but you already have record number 2. So you're going to have duplicate ID numbers. That's going to completely wreck the integrity of your database. So after we do an import in here, we go in and we reset the serial number to be the next number in the sequence. In order for this to work, we actually go back and reference the old FileMaker database. We say, go to the old FileMaker database, go check out that old table, get us the old serial number, and we'll set that into the new FileMaker file. But for this command to work, the old FileMaker file has to be open. So here's what we do. Once again, this is the sequence. We step into our accounts table here, our accounts screen, so we're in a data entry screen. We show all the records here. We delete all the records in our local database, so we delete everything out. Then we do an import, which we're actually going to have to manually walk through. Then we open the source file, so it's open. Now we open it in a hidden state, so it's kind of hidden off screen, but it's open. Then we run the command that resets the serial number. Then we close the old file. So it was open in a hidden state, we reference it, to get this next serial number for the account, then we close it. Then we repeat all over again for the next table. Then for contacts, we go there, we show all the contacts, we delete all the contacts, then we do an import from that old database. Then we open the old database, we reference the serial number, then we close it. Same deal. So the only part that you actually have to worry about through this whole song and dance is the initial setup of the file names, which we did 3 times. We did in the data source, or we did it here in the manage data source. We did it once there. We did it twice up here at the set variables. And then as we step through this script, we have to manually make sure that the fields are lined up on each of these import script steps. And that is very important. I'm actually going to do this a little bit with you right now. And there's a couple little gotchas along the way. Now it's really important that you take your cell phone, you turn it off, set it on vibrate, close the door, have everyone leave you alone, because this is not a job you can do while you're talking to people, you're texting people on Twitter, updating your Facebook page. If you try to do that and do this job at the same time, you're going to blow this import sequence, and it's going to be all for naught. You're going to have to do it all over again. Trust me on this. So I'm going to take a sip of coffee here, because I'm going to need coffee just to get halfway through this thing. All right. That's how all this is working. So I'm going to go ahead and close this. I'm going to hit save. I have to save the changes because I made the changes to the 2 variables at the top. Now we're all set and ready to go. I'm going to bring this over here. I take a look right here. I got the 2 files in here, locked and loaded, ready to go. All right, I'm going to go ahead and activate the script right here. Now, here we go. Now it's important that you pay attention and listen to what I have to say. We're going to step through all the tables now, and there's about 25 or 30 of them. So you have to do this 25 or 30 times correctly. On the right side is the target table, preferences. Don't mess with this. This is set by the computer. The one on the left you can set. On the right, this is almost always going to start with matching names. You're going to add new records, matching names, import, okay? On some of these imports, you're going to have to manually realign things that are going to go out of alignment. And the reason is that the names changed or were updated as versions of FM Starting Point were updated. And I'm going to point out some of those, especially when we went from Starting Point 4.1 to 4.2. We did a lot of work in FM Starting Point, and we've actually found some bugs and some things that were named improperly. So I'm going to point some things out, so pay attention here. So in preferences, it's all pretty straightforward. One thing you'll notice is that things are grayed out. Once again, those are things that we cannot import into. They're either calculations or summaries, something like that. And of course, then all sorts of new fields that don't exist. I'm going to say import. FileMaker is going to ask us, hey, would you like to perform auto enter options? Do not select that. If you get the option right here, which has to do with repeating fields, just leave it as the default, keeping it separate right here. If you have a database where it says preserve external container storage and you have a lot of documents, you might want to go ahead and check this option right here and keep the documents external. That's one of those sort of things. It has to do with the document management. You feel free to reference those videos later on. You can always adjust this later on in the database, so you're not locked into anything right here. This to me is not the critical item. The alignment of the fields over here that we already did is the critical item. So I say import. It gives us this little dialog, which I'm not really going to pay attention to too much. And then we go to the next one. Now this is accounts up here. Notice it says preferences. It's not going to get this right for us. We have to change this every time. So I'm going to go to TO1 accounts. Then I go matching names. And then I'm going to just visually look at this. Now keep in mind, as I'm inspecting here, I'm just looking across. ID constants, a calculation, flag status, some of the calculations, I'm looking. And then there's some new fields in here. ID asset. The asset system was new in FM Starting Point 4. We're importing from Starting Point 3, so of course that wouldn't exist over here. That looks good. I'm going to import. Import again. Looks good. Now notice there's a little flash there. I don't know if you see that or not. That's because that script actually opened the old file, reset the serial number, then closed it again. Now here's contacts. We have to go to contacts. Contacts. right there. The main contact, right there. Matching names. Looks good. Now I'm going to look here at the address. Address 1, city 1, province 1, that looks good. Address 2, that looks good. In invoices and estimates, some of the address field names did change starting at 4.2. So depending upon what version of FM Starting Point you're upgrading, you may want to pay attention to that. Otherwise, your addresses may not come across. Products. There's products. Matching names, once again. Cross looks good. Description looks good. Account SKU number. Now, SKU number is not lining up here. Now, that's a problem. This is one of those moments where you're going to have to sit and straighten this out. Why is SKU number not lining up? And that's a really good question. Did SKU not exist in the old version of FM Starting Point? It very well may not have existed. The problem is I don't remember FM Starting Point 3 that much because that goes back over a year ago for me and my brain, and I don't remember every last thing that we did. If I look over here, I don't see it. The other part of this to keep in mind is if we blow this at some point, then the other thing we're going to have to do is repeat this process, so just keep that in mind. It's another reason why you should turn off your cell phone, close your door, and not be Twittering and Facebooking while you're trying to do this. Okay, estimates. Now, estimates and invoices are important, and I'm going to explain to you why this is. We discovered some naming anomalies when we were doing estimates. I'm not going to adjust these here, but it's important to notate this. Bill to Street, in reality, should be Bill to Street 1 and then Bill to Street 2 over here. And the problem is that Bill to Street 2 didn't exist. And so we actually had to have Bill to Street 1 renamed and then add Bill to Street 2. So what you're going to have to do is, right here we have matching names, but we have supplier street. Now, supplier street is the same as supplier address 1, so that matches right there. And then Bill to Street is the same as Bill to Street 1. Okay, so just keep that in mind. So those are fine, but you're going to have to manually align those. And of course, as soon as you do that, you get a custom import order. Notice right here that also ship to street, that you're going to have to find the ship to street 1 and bring that up. And so estimates and invoices have the same problem here, that have to be manually aligned a little bit because of naming convention changes that we had to standardize on. We didn't do much work in expenses, so that should be a pretty straight across adjustment. Once again, it defaulted to last order. Matching names is the correct sequence there. Invoices. Once again, the address names there were definitely adjusted and changed. Once again, ship to street is now ship to street 1. Okay. Supplier street 1. Right. You're going to need to make sure these things are lining up correctly. Otherwise, you're not going to get the addresses coming across for your invoices. It's very important. I'm going to fast forward my hands here a little bit because some of these don't change too much. Got calendar activities. To-do list. To-do list is T19. Matching names. Staff. T17 is staff. Matching names. Notes is a fun one to try to find. The term notes, we interchangeably call that notes of communication or communication notes. Sometimes you have to look under C to find it, and that's where it's at. It's under C here for communication, but then we just call it notes, which is a little bizarre. So there you go. It's communication and notes, TO4, and matching names. There we go. So that's all straightforward here. Documents is less used, starting with FM starting point 4.2. It's actually a dedicated table for storing digital documents. If you have a ton of digital documents, it's one of those things that you can develop and leverage. Actually, I don't think it's exposed in too many locations within the solution anymore, but it's still in here. Estimate line items. This is an important alert right here. We found a problem with estimate line items here in an improperly named field, and that is as follows. Description was in here, but there was no product name, and we were using description as the product name, so we changed the title to product or product name right here. And so just understand that you need to wire description across the product name and estimate line items. Okay, so just keep that in mind. That problem did not exist in the invoice line items. It was only in estimate line items, so just keep that in mind. Notice here we have description across there. Wasn't a problem. That was just fine. Email forms, once again, if you're not using the email forms, you can just kind of put those together real quick. The cell service, even though it's C for cell, it's down at the bottom, it's T21. Now, this is important right here. This is one of those deals where we identified that the ID field was misnamed, and so we changed the name to be more consistent. All our ID fields are ID underscore, not underscore, ID underscore. So we fixed this. This is one of the areas where it was fixed. It was also fixed in milestones. And so you'll notice that here in a second when we do milestones. It's the same sort of situation. We'll get down to milestones right here, and we'll say matching names, but these two right here at the top are not going to match up just great because of that problem. Now, ID constant never matches because it's a calculation field, but just keep that in mind. Now, the audit log is the audit log. It's only used in tracking product inventory. It's pretty limited deployment within FM starting point. That's all pretty consistent there. And assets. Now, this is an interesting situation right here. There's no assets in FM starting point 3, okay? And so there's really nowhere to import the data from. So I can hit cancel right here, and I can hit continue. And I'm going to hit cancel, because this is asset history, but we tell the script to continue anyway, because we don't really want to stop. And that's it. And so the import's done. So we've done the import. Now what's really important right here, we're in FM starting point 4. We imported from preferences, and it imported the version number from preferences. So it's really important that we go into FM starting point and we change the version number so we know what we were doing. So you should have made a note of what version number that you were using. I'm going to go to layout mode. I'm going to show you how to change the version number so you know how to do this. You go here, you go show your inspector, and I'm going to say edit and browse mode, okay? And so you go to browse mode right that, and you can change your version right here. And so if you want to go back and turn that off, you can, but that's how we ship it. So most people can't change it unless they know to go in there and change that. But if you just import from preferences from an old version, you're going to override your version number, so don't let that throw you. It's really important. So I know this is one of the most boring videos of all time, and doing this import, I could think of 1,000 other things I'd rather do and not be doing this specific job, but it's important. A lot of people have been emailing me about it, and so it was important that we did it. And so hopefully that helps you out. If you have questions or you want someone on my team to help you do this, and you're willing to pay them, then we will be happy to help you with that. So that's it for now. Feel free to email us at support@RC Consulting anytime. Thanks. Bye.